hit the upper part of Cochran's Crossing, rolling towards the Woodlands. And I think we're gonna end up just doing our own thing today because look at the roads. It's damp. It was supposed to just be a little overcast. There was no rain in the forecast, so we took off our mud guards. See the rooster tail? And so I think it's just gonna be here. And once we get out, it should be drier. It was dry when we started in our area. But you can see there are just blotches of scattered showers.
Yeah, the rooster tail does not show up very well on camera. The forecast was off, so we ended up getting pretty messy, but not that bad.
So we're gonna get some clips for you all when we get to the forest.
On this ride, Paul and I left Northampton. It was not supposed to rain. We removed the mud guard, but when we got out, the roads were damp. We picked up Team RR, headed out 1488 West. Mike Barrera moved to the area from San Diego, California. He's our legend from out there. So it was great to meet him in person. We stayed with a group up until Gary. They went on 149 East. We took Jackson. The rain came down, light rain. Since we didn't have mud guards, we were like, oh, come on, man. We relied on the weather, but you can't get it perfect all the time. So it wasn't that bad, just some light rain. And then it stopped and we got through the forest there. We took Fawn Forest, came back on 149. We filmed all the way there on Bailey Grove to 1097. That's on film. It was very gusty. The wind was blowing. It was blowing us. It was kind of dangerous. But we stayed out, came back, cut through the neighborhoods to Keenan, and then took Honia Egypt Road back to the Woodlands. We ended up staying a little over 7.5 hours. It just continued to get colder throughout the day. And you will see in the film that some of the guys were not dressed to be out there very long because some people were wearing regular tights and regular gloves.
Get up there.
We hooked up with Team RR here. We're heading on Research Forest Drive.
I never liked it.
Just after leaving Crust Pizza, we got there just as they were rolling out. It was perfect timing. You can see the roads here are dry versus what you saw in the intro. So there were blotches of wet roads and dry roads and so forth. Normally we just put our mud guards on and forget about it, but they had changed the weather forecast in the morning saying it was just supposed to be cloudy. So we did not expect any precipitation. It was just supposed to be an overcast, cool day. You can see it's 9 Celsius. We didn't get too much above that because in a few hours, the wind from the northeast starts blowing in because the next day it was like 28 Celsius. I'm greeting the boys. I greeted Jerry. That's Jerry on the right there. You can see these guys don't even have their knees covered.
Good morning, man. Yeah, man.
So Jerry says to Paul, you guys look like you're ready to ride.
Good.
I think what he meant was you guys are in for a long ride because, I'm wearing full tights. Paul has knee warmers on.
That looks like Mo.
And then Paul tells me there's more. I spot Mo up there. So in a little bit I'm going to mess with him because Mo always pushing the pace. Mo killed me 2 weeks ago. Not intentionally, but it's like I emptied the tank and I had to let them go. Well, not 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. It was a Sunday ride.
Jerry said we look like we riding?
Yeah, it looks like you're ready.
So I overheard what Jerry said, but I wasn't 100%. Yeah, so he told Paul, he looked like you guys are ready to ride. I think what he meant is you guys are going to be spending a lot of time out here because it never warmed up much. So if you weren't dressed properly, you were going to be cold on this ride. I'm riding up to Mo's group up there. Just accelerating in the same gear, increase my cadence to close this gap. That's Bob on the right there. And the kit he's wearing is really too light for these conditions. They're almost like our Souke kit that I introduced to the channel, the long sleeve ones. They're for like 18 Celsius or 15 to 21 Celsius. Kind of a cool day. This is cold. 9C is cold. And then with the wind gusting like it is from the right, which is north, and them forecasting that the high would be like 11C. But with that wind, it felt like 7 or 8.
We're here with February.
So after we get through this line, I'm gonna race to the front and put my arms up like when you cross the finish line, and Mo's gonna start cracking up. He's chatting with Jesus. At this point, I don't know that it is Jesus, but I see Mo on the right. He's in the line, about probably 3 or 4 riders ahead of Mo. Right here. Mo starts to laugh. And then Jesus said, I was wondering what you were doing. Jesus is on the left. And so they ride from the ash lane. So they were already on this road when we were coming out, and they turned in front of us. I think their group was kind of small, and so Mo knows when these guys are leaving. We all have the group lead thing.
That's Jesus? Okay.
That's what I tell him, Paul. Jesus on the left, so he was wondering who it was. So I just messing around, you know. That's why we do this. It's fun. It's fun to ride a bicycle. I don't know what it is about it. You're just out there, you know, the wind's in your face. Those of you who have hair, the wind's in your hair. You know, and you're just enjoying being out, the freedom. You know, when you're a teenager and you get your bike and you can go wherever you want. You know, it's kind of nice. The mobility under your own power. That's cool. So what I was saying is the Kid Bob is wearing, the fabrics are kind of light for a very cold day. So the wind will get through that. So you got to really select your fabrics right. They got to be real breathable, but also have wind block material. What Moore is wearing up there may not seem very warm, but it is because he's layering. He's got a tight gilet on that you almost have to be right up on him to see. I mean, it fits in so well, it looks like it's part of the jersey. So not only is he aero, but he's warm because he's got a piece of garment that is blocking the wind, but also breathable on the backside. So when you select your gilets, you got to go for that. The guy on the left here is Darren. Darren's dressed really well. He's got a nice warm, it looks like Castelli kit on, but his knees aren't covered. Everybody's got different tolerances, but for me, anything below 18C, I cover my knees just to be on the safe side. Unless it's a warm 18C. But this is 9C, and the day stayed cold. It kept going down. So we were probably about 6 or 7C when we finished. You know, once you get around 7 Celsius, you're talking 45 degrees, and with the wind, you know, it feels like 40 to 42. Yeah, you got to cover your joints. The knee doesn't have a lot of tissue. And that's when you start, if you're not dressed right, you start shortening the ride because you're just not comfortable. And quite a few riders don't have their knees covered. I was surprised to see. I respect the cold, just like I respect the heat. I don't put on heavy stuff in the summer months. I want to make sure I don't overheat. I was trying to be cute. One time in the summer, I rode with more than them, and I had on this base layer from ASOS. They claim it's a summer base layer. Please. I started overheating. I had to let them go. So when it gets above 28C, I don't wear any base layers. I don't care how light they claim they are. I just put on a light jersey. So we're going straight through the neighborhood here. We're going to go up to 1488 West. At this point, we have not met Mike Barrera. He's here. I saw the person in the Rafa RCC kit, but I didn't know it was Mike. So at the light, we're coming up to the light here, he would introduce himself. I've chose orange today because look at the day. It's gonna stay gray the entire day. When it's not very bright, I don't do black and black or stuff. I do white, orange, pink.
1488.
Yes. 149.
Paul is saying they must be going to 1488, and I told him, yeah. We didn't know about the route. I just overheard. I think this is where Mike introduces himself. Mike Barrera.
My pleasure.
So Mike is a legend on the channel that just moved to our area from San Diego, California. Mike Barrera. Rekka, welcome to the Veloharmony local riding. Mike lives in the woodlands now. So he's transplanted. I'm letting him know that once it gets further out, we're going to do our own thing because they're not going as far out. And that's probably why guys dress the way they did.
Great to see you.
Yeah, good to be here.
it was good to meet Mike. And I actually got to ride with Mike the day after this ride. On Sunday, I rode with Mike and Mo and a guy named Rob. And we were supposed to go easy. You know how that goes. And when Mo shows up, his easy pace is a different level for everybody else. So, you know, but he held back, you know. It was a good ride. Really enjoyed it. We did about 2 hours out. And then I did like 90 minutes by myself. You know, from the house there, it's about 40, 45 minutes. So that's Mike on the right. Mike is an RCC member, and Mike is kitted out for this weather properly. He's got a Bianchi, I think it's a Celeste color. It's like a, it's kind of almost like a.
Have you met Mo?
Not yet.
Okay, he's the man in the front.
I see him up there.
Mike knows about Mo. Mike watches the video. Mike follows the channel just like the rest of you. So it's great to see him here. So he and his family, he and his wife moved out here. So they're in the woodlands. They're getting settled in.
I did my first ride with a couple of the guys here when I first got here. I knew the route. I knew half the route.
Yeah.
Just because of the video. It was funny, you know, they go, how do you know this? And I said, well, I've seen it. But coming back, I didn't know anything coming back.
Yeah.
We usually don't come back with them.
Yeah, I know.
Stop.
Yeah, I was telling Paul, like, those guys were surprised I knew the route, you know, the way to get out,
Get out of town.
Fish Creek and all that.
You gotta get out. Woodlands a little tricky. You gotta get out of the line. Luke, they put a run in that line. Get turned around.
I cannot begin to tell you guys how cool this was to ride with a guy. I mean, this is the second person that has come through the channel. Another guy, a couple of guys a few years ago came and visited, but this is different because he actually is a resident here now. But to just be blown away by how much these videos make a difference to people out there, it just gave me a warm, tingling feeling. It was just nice to meet Mike. And Mike is a class act. And you guys will see Mike's gonna ride up at the light and greet Mo. And that's really what you should do when you go to rides. Introduce yourself to the riders. You don't need to know them necessarily, but introduce yourself. Hey, you know, I'm new to the area. Hi guys, how are you doing? I'm blah, blah, blah. And that's just cool. I mean, he's just very outgoing. You know, he's a breath of fresh air. So this is nice. He's riding off to make sure that he stays with the gap closed, because Bob is messing around on the right. I'm gonna ride up and go to the right to close that gap up there. I'm behind Bob right now. So if you look at my stats, you'll see my cadence go up. I'm gonna ride up and go behind Darren because Bob is not sitting on the wheel. Well, if you don't do that, you're wasting energy. There, so I'm just riding up alongside Mike. And so Mike was telling us that his wife is a nurse and they're here. And, you know, it was just kind of cool to meet somebody who's been watching us ride, enjoying the videos like the rest of you, and now he happens to have moved to the area. And he's, you know, you heard him say that he knew how to get out, but because we don't come back with them, they come back early. He didn't know the way back necessarily because we don't film coming back with them. But he knows, he's familiar. As long as you know how to get out of town, you can decide. And once you get out there, you do your loops to decide how you're going to come back. So it was nice that because the area in the woodlands where he lives, where we start, you've got to really familiarize yourself with the streets are not perfect blocks. They're windy, which keeps the area interesting. So you really got to know before you get, otherwise you can get turned around thinking you're going south when you're going north. I've had that happen to me many years ago. And you don't want that to happen when you're running out of food. So this is where we get to 1488. Remember Paul had said, have you met Mo? So Mike's gonna ride up. I did not know. I mean, I was just sitting back there. He's gonna ride up and meet Mo. That's Jerry on the right there. Jerry Luton. Jerry, that's Jesus.
Here you go. He goes to make his introduction to Mo.
Maurizio Topotopini.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Mike. Mike, are you new to the group? New to the area? I'm new to the area. We've been here about 13 days.
He's a ride director for a
time trial series.
Time trial.
Yeah, I do. We put on a time trial series.
So Mike is a ride director in the San Diego area time trial series.
No, I'm a roulaire. through there. All kind of fun.
Great Bundle, Texas ride.
Say again.
Great Bundle, Texas ride that I was talking about?
Yeah.
He's handling all the permitting stuff for that.
Yeah.
Green up. So that's what I was talking about, guys. When you go to an area, whether you're visiting, whatever, you go to a ride, just go and meet the locals. Say hi. You know, you don't need to know who it is. Just introduce yourself so people know, oh, a new guy with us. And people might give you tips on the route and different things. So those two maniacs take off, Mike and Mo. And then Jerry and Jesus is getting there. Paul's here. I'm behind Paul. In a little bit, I'm going to ride up so we can just close everything up. And that's how the WCC guys ride. The light changes. It's time to go. Get up to speed. Let's go. No messing around. You know, Mo says riding time is precious. You got 2 hours to ride. You want to ride 159.75 of it. You know, preferably no red lights. In a little bit, I'm going to come in front of Paul. I think we're riding together somewhat, and the ride commences. And Mo spends the bulk of the next, I would say, 10 kilometers almost sitting at the front. Just keeping the pace steady. It was pretty steady. You'll see him when he pulls off. But he did the same thing on Sunday. He was just riding, and we got to the overpass, and he just didn't slow down. That's to say the road didn't go up. It's like, we just kind of let the gap open, and we kept riding at our pace. Then he looked behind. He's like, oh, okay. At one point in the ride, he said, sorry. I thought I said, you need to back off because Rob was struggling with the pace, but it was like we had intended to ride a little more subdued, and he was riding pretty steadily. But it's just amazing that how he rides those climbs. He makes it look easy. But it's nice riding behind Mo because when you watch, I was watching on Sunday, like when the road would go up, he wouldn't downshift more than maybe one car. That would be it. And his rhythm would stay the same. And that's the key though. Because if you change your rhythm very drastically, like in a crit, you come around the corner, everybody sprinting, all that, it's very hard on your engine. So you gotta be really measured until it's really absolutely necessary for you to really disrupt your rhythm. Let's put it that way. And you can see because of the draft, the watts are not very high because I'm sitting fairly close to Jesus. I don't drink much when it's cold. And you know what? I was talking with Mo a few weeks back, and he said you got to force yourself to drink. He said that we had stopped at Taco Corner, and so it makes sense because you don't want to get home and your urine is dark or yellow or whatever. That means you're behind and you're dehydrated. It's not good for your body. But there's a tendency in the cold, you're not expending as much as you do when it's hot, and you don't think about it. You feel like you don't need to drink as much. So I've been really making myself drink, even when it's cold. But you're not going to drink as much as you do during the summer. But you need to drink. Get some water in your system, and maybe you can drink before you get on the bike. I've been doing that too. Although you tend to have to make pit stops more in the cold. So, but still, you don't want to get home and you have your urine pickled with lactic acid from the ride. As Jerry's sitting on the side there, he's chatting with Mike Barrera, our local legend now from San Diego, California, the California Republic. So it's good to have Mike in the area. Mike has been meeting all the guys, going out on rides during the week, you know, with some of the riders that are available because with the GroupMe app, anybody can put a group ride together at any time. You know, say, oh, I'm heading out at this time, and if somebody can join, they join. A lot of those rides that they put up, the times are not convenient for me, especially during the week. And then even on the weekends when they do the later ones, I like the early stuff. So Sunday, even though it was like 22 Fahrenheit, we met at 7:30. And Mike Barrera was there, Rob was there, and Mo was there. So just the four of us. It was good little group. We did a couple of hours, that's it. Mo says he gets up early, so you might as well just head out, get your K's in, and get on with your day, doing all the stuff. That's the same thing here, you know. Early to bed, early to rise. I don't stay up late. Sometimes, you know, you want to watch this movie or something, you might stay up. I still get up at the same time and maybe end up taking a nap. So right now, all I'm doing is I'm staying close and keeping my rhythm steady. I'm trying to stay between 85, 95. I'm not really thinking about it consciously, but in the pace line, I don't like to go much over 100 unless I'm closing a gap or I'm leading the group and really working. Because right now, you're just kind of cruising. So you want to find a reasonable rhythm so you don't expend unnecessary energy. So I'm probably riding a 53.17, thereabouts. I train in those gears. This time of year now, training, you got to train in those gears so that your legs can get used to it. I don't get too wrapped up with, oh, what my heart rate is doing. The heart doesn't pedal the bike, it's your legs. You got to strengthen your legs throughout the season, you know. You got to be able to handle these gears because to go faster, you're going to have to get in a larger ratio and turn it around your cruising cadence. That's just the way it works. So you got to do the workouts in intervals that will get you there. Go on the website at Veloharmony.com. We got a bunch of workouts out there. You can get some copies of them. They're not fun, but you want to mix them into your rides in sections. I shouldn't say they're not fun, but the way I have them designed to where you're not killing yourself. You start out, say like tempo zone, and then you drive up to zone 4. And over time, you'll be able to tolerate it and go harder. But if that's not the kind of riding you're doing, yeah, you don't need to do those high intensity workouts. Below sweet spot here, sitting in the pace line. Mo is still pulling this entire stretch, sitting at the front pulling. And he's keeping it very steady. So you get an opportunity to get some kind of a rhythm. I think this is where Jerry gets in the line. If they're done talking, the pace is still high, so I think Jerry gets in the draft. I think Jerry is in front of Jesus. The gear felt easy. You see me looking down. I'm looking at the gear I'm in because I really can't believe that the gear I'm in is feeling this easy. I may have put it into a 53, I think it's at least a 17, which is like a 84, almost an 85-inch gear. I think it's 84-inch gear. And it just felt easy. This road is not extremely flat. There's a slight grade, you know, and then with the wind, you feel the drag. So I was looking down to see, okay, what am I in? The reason I was doing that is so that when I'm riding by myself, I can replicate this effort. Sweet spot in this gear. That's the way I kind of do things. I'm right around sweet spot. The temperature says 10 Celsius, which is 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It feels cooler than that. It feels more like 45, 46 Fahrenheit. About 7 or 8 Celsius. I've dubbed the wind, but the wind is out there. The drizzle, you can see a little bit of drizzle on the lens of the camera. A little to the right in the middle of the screen. There's a bit of a reflection. That's moisture on the lens. There's nothing significant, just flicks of moisture. The sky was very pretty on this day because of all the movement of the clouds and so forth, and the sun trying to peek through. A lot of colors going on. You can see the reflection. Those red, that's the moisture reflecting the brake lights on our bike, the safety lights, I said, reflecting on the moisture on the lens. It was soft pedaling for this light. I think it's red, and just as we get there, it turns to green. And when that happens, you want to stay close to the wheel in front of you so you don't have to make up too much grind. I don't get up. I downshift to a slightly easier gear, maybe one cog, and ride up and then shift back up. Because they really didn't take off that fast. It just continued the momentum. I'm wearing 3 layers. I've got a base layer, the long sleeve GSM fabric jersey from Rafa, and I'm wearing my ASOS rain gilet, rain/wind shell. We're riding around 22, 23 miles an hour. And the thing that I found amazing was that with all the wind and the grades or whatever, when we went up Mount Magnolia, I think we were right at 19, 20 miles an hour or something. We'll see in a little bit. But it's almost like the pace just stayed somewhat the same the entire time. Then we get on, you'll see when we get on 149, it just stays like that. So you're working. And that's another benefit of being in a group. They will push you harder than you would yourself because you're following the group and you're encouraged to keep working. This is where Mo pulls off. So he's been pulling from the time we turned, actually before, from the time we left on Research Forest. When I was messing around with he and Jesus. This is where he greets Paul. Because he didn't see Paul, because I went to the front, did that foolishness. So he was up front that whole way. So at least, what? Almost 10 miles? I don't know. At least 7 or 8 miles. Mo is a machine, man. There's a hole. That's our hole we always point out. I just moved to the right. I know it's there. I don't bother riding too close to it. This is a nice little bump. It's at least, what, let's see, 2%. It's not very long, but it gets there, and you feel it. We're in like a 84-inch gear or whatever. 2 to 3%. The cool thing is we didn't have to put that many watts down because I didn't have to go around anybody didn't have to do 500 watts to bridge up. So 200 to 300 watts, you're just sitting there. That's not too bad. That's another reason why you don't want to be around somebody who leaves a lot of gaps. You have to work so much harder to get around them, especially on the incline. So that's Mike Barrera at the front right now. From San Diego, California Republic. He's in the Republic of Texas now. Welcome to Texas, Mike. Mike Barrera. It's cool to meet Mike. We're talking about cycling gear on Sunday. I was trying this new glove from Castelli, the Estremo. I was very impressed with it. I've got a review coming out, so I showed it to Mike. And just the things I liked about it. Without a liner, I used it up down to 22 Fahrenheit. it has beaten everything else I've ever tried. So I continue to have an open mind, keep trying products, because it's not how much you spend, it's really how well they work. And you know, for aesthetics being important too. But it costs less than some of the other gloves I have, and it worked better than all of them in those conditions. And I was able to use it from let's say -3 Celsius to 8 or 9 Celsius. That's a great range. So that's my go-to very cold weather glove. And I tried it with liners when I got back, and the liners allow you to get in the glove the way it's cut. You can get in with liners easily. You're not fighting to get your hand in. There's a lot of dirt on the road because of the construction on the left and the right, as you see. So I stay a little more in the lane. Well, this lane actually is a turn to the high school, Magnolia High School, the east campus. I don't know if they call it east, but there's another Magnolia West. So I always try to refer to it that way. But this lane goes to the right. So we're gonna use it until we get to the split off where we go straight right here. But there's a lot of debris, like grit and stuff. So once they get to be too much, I'm gonna stay on the yellow line. I don't ride the yellow line in turns because they're very slippery. Or if you're riding straight, it's not that big a deal. Unless you're standing and trying to accelerate. Try not to be on the, not yellow line, white line. Try not to be on the white line if you're standing, because you won't get as much traction. You hear all the gravel, it's like little small sand. I let Paul know we're moving to the right. I'm just gonna stay on the white line. I ride here often enough to know that there's a little more debris because the trucks are hauling stuff from the construction site. So you see where I'm staying. So I can see what's coming. And it's cleaner right there. So if you're going straight, it's okay to be on the line. But if you're gonna stand, don't stand while you're on the line. Your back wheel can slip. So this is where, what's this guy, John comes and he accelerates. I was thinking about going with him and then decided, nah, why bother? Because I noticed the rest of the guys are just holding a steady pace. So we're around almost 300 watts or so. I decided to not bother wasting energy. No point to it. We're not sprinting for anything. That's the water off the pavement. Getting on the camera, you see the droplets. So he doesn't really gain anything significant in front of us, and I'm glad I did not waste my energy going with him. I just kept riding. Because they'll make those moves and then slide back in the groove. When I'm up front and people do that, I like to keep them at the front. If you got energy to do that, you need to pull the group. So between 300 to 400 watts, we climb that thing. And the watts are gonna jump around. You know, I've got a 3-second average showing on the right. That's what you're seeing there. If you try to do raw watts, you will go crazy. This is what I was talking about. Since we're coming to the corner, I use this because there are no cars coming, but before we turn, you will see me, and I point that out to Paul so he's aware. He knew, because we ride together all the time, he knew not to corner on that line. Whenever you're cornering, leaning, accelerating, even in your car, your tires can slip on those white painted lines. They're slick. So that's Mike Barreras right there from San Diego, California, our legend, who is now a local legend. And I overheard them at the corner. So Mike used to host rides, like a ride director in the area where he's from. Desmo, he was sitting on the back after doing all that pulling, and he rides up. That's the Cycle light that he has. I think it's a 200.
Sit up like that when we're going uphill. Yeah, made a big difference. Did it really help? It does for me, because it doesn't hurt my back. Yeah, I get up right here.
This is FM 149. I don't know if it's an FM or a highway. It might just be a highway. 149. We are in the city outskirts of Magnolia, a little east, a few kilometers east, maybe about 5 kilometers east of their downtown. We're heading north towards Karen and then Dobbins, Ghosts and Goblins. You see the watts that required just to get back up to speed. Same thing in your car. When you're accelerating from intersection to intersection, that initial push is inefficient. So the starting and stopping driving that we do in the city burns more fuel than cruising on the highway. I'm sure you guys are aware of that, guys and girls on the channel. So when you're riding, once you get up to speed, try to be as efficient as you can. Especially, let's say you get away from a group or whatever, raise your speed and try to hold it at some particular pace. Then you'll be able to sip your energy. You see the stripes on my tights and on the gilet? The light from Paul's bike is what's making it flash. When a car hits those things, they light up. The car's headlights. I'm using a bit of an acceleration to close the gap. These guys just start to go harder, and I'm basically closing the little gap that opened while I was drinking. I'm going to spend the rest of this time sitting next to the white line there, because there are sections of this shoulder that has little pieces that has some divots, but also little rocks that fall off of these diesel trucks, not dump trucks, that are carrying work to the site. And then when the cars drive, it pushes it to the right. So you get these little pebbles. I hate rolling over pebbles. We don't get sweepers out here that often, so unless you get a big storm that cleans the shoulder, you always get those little things. But they always end up a little over about halfway of this length, this shoulder. So you see where I'm sitting. I like this route. It's not far from where I reside, and it's a quick 2.5, 3 hour, loop or something like that. So sometimes when I can sneak away, I'll just come and do it by myself. So I'm familiar with where the debris is. You get to know, you guys know, you get to know all the potholes on your local routes. In a few kilometers, I noticed that Mike Barrera goes ahead and uses the main lane and goes around the guy he's following, the guy who went up that climb when we're climbing on the left. But I don't know, I guess it was because maybe what I noticed was the guy was leaving a good gap to the wheel in front of him. I think that's just what he was comfortable doing. I don't think the pace was a problem for him. I think it's just, some people ride to where they don't want to get very close to the wheel in front of them. If you know that, it's not a problem. You can continue to follow them, but you still have to keep your eye on it to make sure you're not ending up closing a very large gap. I end up leaving a huge gap. You will see in a little while that I end up closing before Paul and I decided to go our own way. Because I sat up thinking that, well, do I want to go with them on 149 or do I want to do Jackson? I was undecided. And those guys are riding, they don't back off. So you gotta be alert and focused. That's why when you're in the draft, you want to stay close. I'm less than a foot away from Mike. He's easy to follow. And you can see I have not changed my position. So all the stuff he's calling out, I know they're there. That's why I'm sitting where I am. You know, all the pieces of tire that have rubbed off of, I don't know what it is, these vehicles, the tread peels off. It ends up sitting on the shoulder. So everything that's there, I just stay to the left, and Paulie along got nose. And this part of the road, the cool thing is it's not wet here. So we're not getting sprayed or anything. It's kind of nice. So when I'm in the pace line on a flat road, I try to stay between 85 to 95. It's going to vary. There are times when I might go over 100, but I don't cruise triple digits. It's not necessarily the most efficient thing to do. You have to find your own rhythm for the moment. It's going to vary. This is where Mike goes around that guy in the red I was talking about. There's something he did not like. So he went around and just filled the gap that was in front of him. It was a large enough gap. And so I just rode up closer to his wheel. I'm not sure why he was leaving such a huge gap. It is easier to follow a rider that is smooth and predictable than one that is erratic and overreacting to obstacles or warnings or whatever. You know how that is. There's always a few in groups. This is a slight downhill, and I'm just rolling so fast that I go to the right. I think I'm going to even come up alongside him in a bit. That's the little gap in the pavement I was talking about. It's on the right. Kind of know where it is. Yeah, it's a good line going on. I can just imagine what it felt like that at this point in the ride. I had a nice rhythm going. Everything was smooth. Because Mo is keeping things so steady, it's just so easy to follow. I'm staying a little to the right to see around this guy, to see what they're doing up there. And I think the pavement's getting a little damp. See how it's shiny? That shine. That's when the asphalt is at its most slippery state. And they slow down, I soft pedal, like right here. I'm soft pedaling so you see my watts are like flickering around. Now right here, I'm not even pedaling and I'm passing it. So I just stay to the right. I don't have to use my brakes. And then the rider behind me does not have to overreact. We're approaching, I believe, 149. Yeah, railroad tracks, yeah. At this point, I thought we were going straight because we didn't get there to hear the route. Then they pointed, so I went ahead and pointed. When we turn, I'm trying to make up a mind. We're gonna go with them, not. Usually I like to discuss things with Paul, before we change stuff. But really knowing Paul, this part of this direction is not that challenging. There's one little hill and then it levels off. And you can see now my indecision caused the gap to open. I stay in the same gear. That's a pretty significant gap. And those guys did not back off, so I go ahead and I don't even get aero. I want to work. I just go ahead and do the work. My goal is to close the gap and then find out from Paul what he wants to do. There's some debris. It's like a metal sieve or something, almost like a screen, metal piece of screen. You don't want to hit that. I had to do about 26, 27 to get up to them. And we're going into this wind here. So right here, I decided to call Paul up and ask him what he wants to do, then we'll wave the guys around. Because, you know, I like Jackson, and once we get out here, we don't get to come this far out that often. So when we do, we try to maximize our favorite sections. Because we live further in town than these guys. We live about 10 miles south of them.
Can't hear you.
So this is where we wave them around. And then when Dan comes around, he says, where to close that gap? You don't hear, the camera didn't pick it up. We wave them around so they can get up there. We're going to turn around. So Bob's asking for a
More rider. Yeah, we're going to do Jackson.
Bob's too far behind. He's not going to catch those guys. He's already off the pace. Now, you guys notice that I closed that gap, and I just noticed it myself, but that's normal for the kind of riding we're doing. I closed the gap, which was significant, and then talked to Paul like we're watching television or something. That's what the long,
All right, you legends, we're in the forest,
steady
we're
distance
heading
does. Remember that.
We went ahead and let those guys go because we wanted to go through on Jackson Road. Because that part of 149, we do it all the time. And we really didn't want to do it today. So we're near the forest. We're heading south. We're going to do Bailey Grove.
So right now my legs are behind my aerobic system.
Never really warmed up today.
My aerobic system needs to be driven harder. And so I got to get it's a balance between your legs versus your cardio and so forth and so on throughout any kind of endeavor, especially in our sport. You got to do the workout to balance them out. So we're heading south on 149 towards Bailey Grove Road. You can see it had gotten up to like 10 Celsius. Now it's down to 9. It continued to go down. The wind is gusting from the north on our right and from the left east. We're headed south right now, so we got a bit of a tail crosswind, but mostly tail. So in a little bit, we're gonna have some fun with it. We never had a perfect tailwind. It was always swirling around. This is after a light drizzle that we encountered when we went through the forest, and we've settled into a rhythm here. Whenever we come out here, we like to do Bailey Grove westbound. So because we got tailwind, you can see the watts are low, and we're moving along, just enjoying the work because we've been riding into that wind for the last couple of hours. There's nothing coming. I looked in my mirror. The main lane is clear. We're going kind of fast. I said, let's use the main lane. I'm waiting for Paul to get closer here. That's how you're supposed to look on your bike. You're supposed to be smooth, not bouncing around. It's an extension of your body when you're dialed in. You can pretty much ride forever in comfort. You hear the wind? It's really gusting because the road has now turned more towards the west, where it says southwest. We were going south before. Now it's turned more towards the west. It's going to loop back to the south. See the curve? So the more westerly we're going, the more wind pounds us from the right. We're going to turn here on Bailey Grove Road, and this is going west. And that wind is coming from the right and is gusting. At this point, it's just blowing steadily, and then in a little bit, less than a kilometer, we're switching the camera, and then we both get blown to the side. It's like, and it startled us because it was not a day to take your hands off the bar unless you had the wind directly behind you.
I'm hungry for some reason. Yeah, I need some food.
Yeah, I just had a taste for something, so I went ahead and got the camera. I'm gonna pull my bar. I've got the wind behind me, We're going directly south, and most of the wind is coming from the north. And these roads are twisty, so you really have to pay attention. And that's anytime you're cycling. That's what I mean when I say you always have to find the draft. The draft is never in one spot. So I'm trying to get my bar out
Eat more when it's cold.
before we have to turn, because when we turn, I got the bar out already. That's that peanut, Nutri-Green peanut and salt. I think it's like sweet and salty peanut bar or granola bar or something. It's really good for some reason. It's best this time of the year. In the summer, it melts easily if you put them in your pocket. Then when you open the packet, it's a little sticky. But I really like that. My wife gets it from Sam's instead of just gels. That gives you like natural grains and it stays with you for hours. So right here, we got a bit of shelter with these trees, but the wind is blowing from the right on the screen. That's north, from that direction. It's blowing stiffly and it's gusting enough to where it can pretty much blow you off the
riding
road.
up on it.
I'm telling him about his vest. His vest keeps moving.
Your jacket keeps going up, your vest.
Paul lost some weight over the winter, and so he's a lot leaner than in previous years. So he's had to reevaluate what sizing he needs on different pieces of kit. So things always change, you know, you have to have an open mind. When we got those Gilet, we got XL because they don't stretch very much. So it's a little roomy for you, but it's still nice. It still works.
That wind.
Yeah, the wind just blew me. See, it blew me away from him. I was going to give him the camera.
Look at all that weight you lost.
I'm messing with him. I said, that's all that weight you lost. That's why the Gilet is being blown off to the side. You hear the wind? It is blowing so much that it was blowing us almost to the other lane. So I handed him the camera, and yeah, look at my Gilet. The wind is pounding us. And then in a little bit, we got to go north, up a climb into this wind. You will hear me tell him. Yeah, that's what I'm telling him, because we're going to turn right. That's why we like this road. It turns right and then it kicks up to probably 4.5%, 5%.
Yeah.
I was telling him that this gilet from ASOS fits the body so well. I have the zipper open in this gusting condition with the wind, and look how it still has its form being maintained.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not leaving the bars to zip it up right now. I'm waiting till I get some shelter. Now the wind went down. I will use, and you can do it with one hand. I really like that. The zipper is robust enough that you can zip it and unzip it with one hand. That's the Schlossen rain vest. Rain/wind shells, they call them. They're so breathable that they perform both functions admirably. I'm basically zipping it down. It has a nice tab at the bottom to keep the zipper off your Lycra shorts. So the top guys, the top vendors put a lot of thought into their products. They're not just making garments anymore. They are artisans. They're creating unique pieces of kit. That's just my take on it. Because they have to sit around, you know, like ASOS has what they call it, ASOS Lab. They have to sit around just coming up with stuff like, okay, you know, who are they talking to? They're cyclists themselves. They're solving problems that we run into. You don't want to buy a nice pair of bib shorts for $150 or whatever you pay for it and have some $30 zipper put a hole in it. So they've got this huge tab on the bottom of that gilet. Then on the other side of the tab, when you look at it, it says, have a good ride. So the top guys have enough time. They've made enough clothing to where they're like, we're not going to make just clothing anymore. We're going to create pieces of kit that are works of art. That's my take. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. Who knows? But they work so well. It's really nice to be able to enjoy them. Because when we competed, these things were not out there. So at this point, I believe we've turned north because the speeds are going to drop at 22 kilometers. So that's why I don't worry about speed. You want to find a gear that you can handle. I think we're going to turn up there. The speeds will really drop. We'll be doing like 10 miles an hour, probably 16 kilometers an hour. So it's not the speed, it's the effort. I'm dodging those little puddles of water because we don't have our mud guards, so the forecast is off. Right here we turn and that wind just unleashes. Listen. It hit me right there. In a little bit, I'm going to, once I get to the gear before, well, 2 gears before I cross chain, I go ahead and get on a small chain ring. I don't even bother getting to the gear before cross chaining, just shift. Yeah, it's blowing. I mean, even the trees are being shaken. It's really worse than you can hear on here because of the dubbing, but it is just, we're getting blown around. It's a 5-6% climb, 6%. It is just blowing. Yeah, you can hear that, a little bit of a light whistling. So that gilet did the job, because without that I would have felt colder. It really blocked this wind. That's why you can't just go by temperature. You gotta walk outside your backyard and see what's going on. We stood in the parking lot before we left, before we clipped in, at our house, and we could tell it was gonna be colder because we could feel the wind while we're standing in one spot. And normally where we are, it's not a windy area. I mean, you got buildings and trees. So I told him, I said, no, it's gonna be worse when we get in the open road. And so we were dressed appropriately. I always err on the side of having too much stuff versus not having enough. You can always take it off. If you have to, you can stick it between your bib shorts and your lower back if you have to. You run out of pocket room. So I'd much rather have it and not need it than the other way around. So when we turn, the wind diminishes, but then every time we hit an open area, we had to be real cautious because these trees are gonna block. But when you get an open area, the wind comes through freely. You don't want it to surprise you. So you see how much attention is required. So who's got the time to be listening to music and all that other foolishness? I just wanna be right. There's too much going on. There's enough stimuli for your brain without all that other stuff. The music's good if you're warming up on a trainer to go do an event. But once it's time to ride, there's enough going on. You're watching for all kinds of stuff. Potholes, squirrels. You don't want a squirrel getting in between your spokes. You look, a twig on the road can bring you down if you hit it just right and it flips up. Mike Barrera was telling me about it. Something that happened to them on Sunday, in a group ride. The person flipped up a twig and it got between somebody's spokes. So I can lock up your wheel. And if it's the front, you're gonna be going down. You have to take some serious bike handling to avoid that. So yeah, there's enough going on. That's why cycling is not boring. You can do the same course every day, and it's different because the environment decides what to throw at you. Or based on how much sleep you had or how much rest you had. The next ride might feel different than the last one. In both directions, better or worse. That's why we love this sport. You never master it. The thing is blowing, so I just get a rhythm. I'm just keeping a steady rhythm. You can see it says 8 Celsius. The temperature, I think, got down to like 6.5 or 7 C by the time we were done. It got colder and colder. We were fine because we had already dressed knowing that the temperature that day was not supposed to go up much. When you have a day where it starts out at 48 Fahrenheit and the high is, say, 50 around here, it's not gonna, you know it's gonna be colder. And I always deduct I always deduct 5 Fahrenheit when I'm coming north.
Come on, bro. Let me draw some of this fun.
Come on,
It's blowing, man. Shoot.
The wind is just pounding.
Good thing
Like-
is we'll take it home.
Yeah,
blowing
it's
in the
gonna be
right
behind
direction.
us mostly, theoretically anyway. And this section here is open. When we turn, I expected it to be really heavy down here,
We're turning into this wind. It's gusting.
but it ended up not being. It's like
Find the
there were
proper
no
gear, my brother.
gusts.
Don't fight it.
Yeah, I told him to find a gear, but once we turned, there was nothing. I said, "Oh, okay." You hear me telling me.
Oh, not so bad there.
You hear how quiet it got?
That's where the racer dog used to live.
Yeah, there was
Over
a
that
dog
hill.
that used to race us in the grass. I haven't seen him in at least a year, man. It was a spotted black and white dog. We had filmed him racing us. He used to live in the house coming up on the right. Maybe he moved away. I'm sitting on Paul's hip, enjoying this little bit of a break.
Used to live in that house over there. I don't see him anymore.
I spread out because this house had multiple dogs, including our racer dogs. So I spread out, so just in case they come out, we're not tightly together.
Probably moved away. He used to race us in the grass.
Yeah, he was a cool dog, like a herding dog. He just stayed in the grass and he wanted to see what you got.
Oh, yeah, this was
He's like,
much
show me
nicer.
what you got.
First stretch, I
This
think,
stretch right here was
Look
not
at the
as
tree
windy.
on the left.
The one on the left, the tree's getting blown. The
Pounding.
camera doesn't pick it up very well. This tree right here was getting shaken around by the wind. It was literally just like the wind was shaking them around.
Yeah, this wet, dry.
Paul's talking about how dry it is
he
here.
ain't
There
got
was
our
no
time.
rain.
He's a smart dog. How you
That
doing,
black
man?
dog over there, he didn't have our
What you working
time.
on?
He's like,
He's just
whatever.
chilling, enjoying the weather.
Yeah, that guy was just taking it
Whopping
easy.
8.6 degrees Celsius,
It's those little Chihuahua dogs that like to chase people.
56 degrees Fahrenheit.
The real dogs don't mess around with people.
Feels colder.
Usually. This is 1097, the western part of it, and we headed south. It goes
Enjoy
southeast.
this bad boy. You got the
Now,
wind
we
behind
turned,
the
it was quiet. Yeah,
Total
very
tailwind.
quiet. So just this section, there's a lot of tailwind, but then we're gonna start inching towards the east up there, and the wind is blowing from behind and from the left. So you gotta enjoy the little sections while you can. Mo was telling us that at the end of the ride on this day, he was telling me on Sunday, he said he did not stay
Be really dumb. to
below
have an accident
30
way out
on the
here.
stretch coming home. He was
There's a
pushing
car
it
once
on
in a while,
probably
and you
Fish
run
Creek, I
into
guess.
someone.
But he
Like,
really
pretty late.
enjoyed the tailwind, he said. And it was gusting, so it's like, yeah. So when there's a lot of tailwind, you're going to be riding larger ratio gears. This is when your leg speed comes into play, so that you don't sacrifice your leg strength too early. So if you can spin those gears in high speed situations, you can save the really heavy work for later. Look at the sky. It's really interesting. I love days like these. There were sections of the ride where we're headed north. The wind was blowing the clouds west. Coming back home in this direction, southbound, the wind was blowing the clouds east. So it's like everything had changed in a few hours. I soft pedal a little bit away for Paul to come in. You can see him in the mirror. So we get a rhythm and start going. The wind is blowing from behind and from the left, and then this road is up and down. What I like about the gilets that we're wearing, both of them, when you turn, I was telling Paul about the clouds in the distance. It's beautiful. It's like a bluish gray color in between there, all the way close to the horizon above the trees. That's what the color is. It's just prettiest. But what I was saying was that you have to get gilets that breathe, because then when you're going downwind, you don't have to take them off necessarily. It would take a significant change in temperature for you to need to remove them. You can just like unzip a bit if you need to. I didn't have to do much with this setup. It worked fine. So for 10C or below, you have to figure out, for me, 3 layers are perfect. Below, let's see, 7C or below, I have to really get a warmer top shell. Or do 3 layers plus a shell, so like 4 layers. If it's gonna stay below there. You hear the wind? So we never had a perfect tailwind for too long. We're turning more easterly. We're going southeasterly now. And the wind blows from the east and the north. So what's gonna happen in a little while, we'll have wind coming from the left, because now we'll be heading directionally eastbound. So if you look at the cyclist in that diagram, the data field, look above him, you will see it went from southeast. It's between southeast and east as this road is curving. So the road is going to curve back to the right here, which will be more southeasterly. And as it happens, look at the southeast comes back to the middle. That is so cool. That's why I sync the data from my head unit to the film. Because when they're synced right, you get to enjoy all the metrics. So now we're headed more southeasterly, and it's gonna keep going. And if we keep going in this direction, we'll go more southbound and get more of a tailwind. And you get that on your head unit. It's called heading, like on the Garmin. I don't know what the other vendors use. I always keep the heading there to know that I'm not turned around. Especially if you're in unfamiliar territory. So as we continue to head more southbound, the wind backs off a bit, because the heavier flow and the gusts appear to be coming more from the north than from the east. But this road is not straight, so it's going to go back towards the east in a few kilometers. And then it's continually up and down. That's another reason we like this road, besides the fact that it has a nice clean shoulder the entire length in both directions. Heavily traveled by local cyclists. So anywhere you live, you want to go, you can use Garmin Connect. There are a lot of tools out there. Garmin Connect is free if you have a Garmin device. Those of you who have Strava Premium, they probably have something like that. You can look at what they call hot maps, and they'll show you in color what roads are frequently used by cyclists. So when you go to an area you're unfamiliar with, that's a good tool to have. It always helps to talk to the local shops if you happen to be there or near one. But if you don't have one nearby, then you can get that information online. So you can find the quietest routes. And they will even give you the elevation. So now you can see the road just visually is banking. Let's see, it's going to the right, so that's more southbound. In a little while, it's gonna go easterly. And then that wind will really start blowing us. All I'm trying to do is keep my rhythm the same. The same rhythm we're using on Bailey Grove when we're doing 16 kilometers an hour. It's a similar rhythm I'm doing here. So forget about speed, focus on your effort. Whatever, if you're training to power or heart rate or RPE, heart rate has to catch up. Heart rate is okay to just kind of see what your body is doing once you get into a certain effort. But for the most part, I think power and feel.
Oh, tailwind. That sucker's blowing from the side.
I told him, I said, we don't have a tailwind. Not pedaling right now. We've got the wind coming from mostly behind right here. Now you see the road turning left. That's more easterly. I'm still just coasting because we're going slightly downhill. It says -1. So you see how if you look at the direction above the grade and the amount of meters, you see how east is coming back to the middle. Now we're going to start going more eastbound. Look at Paul's gilet. That's the wind from the north, because now we're going eastbound and it's coming from our left. And it's literally pushing us. We couldn't do a perfect echelon here. It was blowing you to where it wanted to blow you into the grass. There were times when we literally thought we were going to get blown off the road. And this thing is dubbed. And look at how much wind you still hear. I stayed a little off to the right of his rear wheel, but I did not overlap because of how much we're getting moved. See, he just got moved around. That's the gusts. So when it's windy like that, you want to make sure you keep your hands on the bars. Not time to be cute. And find a gear that won't blow your legs. And it helps if you don't have really deep dish wheels like the 800s or 808 or those kind of things, because they really get blown around. But don't take it for granted. The gusts can blow you off the road. I mean, even some of the pros, they get blown off the road because they were, holding the bars too cute or did not expect the wind to, but when it blows like that, I lean into it and I grab my bars and try to get as aero as I can. That's all you can do. So it was just cold. It kept blowing. It still says 8C. It felt like 6 with this wind. It was just, yeah. We must be going downhill. Yeah, -1 because I just rolled up to him. Because I was just sitting back there feathering the pedals. Because he's taking the brunt of the wind. He likes this stuff, so I figured let him sit up there. When we got to the house, he said, "Man, I feel the thing. I feel the ride in my legs." I was like, "You and me both." You know how you get home, you've had a good ride, and your whole leg just feels nice and sore. That kind of good soreness. time for a meal and, you know, take a hot shower and try to recover and do it all over again. When I went out on Sunday, my legs were screaming. Those guys were supposed to ride easy. Yeah, you can't ride easy with other people. You gotta ride easy by yourself. Everybody says they're gonna ride easy. It's never easy because everybody's easy is different. The guy who put the ride together, I told him, I said, man, this is not zone 1. He said, yeah. Because he advertised we're gonna be riding zone 1. I'm like, yeah, right. We're gonna be turning soon. I think we end up taking a road. We did not go all the way to 149. This goes to 149 on the south side of it, south of Montgomery Park, West Montgomery Park. We're outside of the city of Magnolia, Texas. So we're gonna take a Martin Luther King drive that will dump us onto Lone Star Parkway. All of that's off camera. But don't let the weather deter you. Get the equipment you need to fill the time you have available to ride. I can only do this early in the morning. So throughout the years, I've accumulated the pieces of kit that would deal with heat, cold, rain, all of that, so I can keep my appointment, because I hate being stuck on the trainer unless absolutely necessary. So I don't know what you did this weekend, but this is what we did, part of what we did on Saturday. Remember, get your K's in and keep those doctors far.